Right here, some time ago, I mentioned the fact that European British schools are hiring professors of literature, professors of history, professors of literature, because we do not deal only with business in an abstract sense, we deal with humanity. And in that sense, we need not only professionals in whatever endeavor we choose to do business, but always humans who can relate effectively one with others, and we sorely need that. In the Heights, it's a fascinating play, I think, in the same way in which Junot Diaz, Dominican writer, he won the Pulitzer Prize for that great novel, The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. And like Lin-Manuel Miranda, in order to win something, you have to excel and something else. Right? And Latinos do that, Hispanics do that in the United States. This is a play, so then, Professor, why do we need to talk about literature? What is so important about literature? That's a good question. Okay, it is so important that art, creation, seems to be ingrained in humans. So it's nothing that is not school-given. It's nature-given. Let me give you one example. These are fabulous paintings that are found where, in which case, there's an argument regarding the time. It could be the 13th, 14th, or 15th century. At any rate, it shows that the so-called uncivilized people, and it's a prejudiced notion of civilized, have this inner desire to express themselves through art, through creation. These are found, and there are many fantastic drawings, not drawings, that's art, actually, in La Mona, in Isla de Mona, in caves underneath Mona. So that shows that art, creation is ingrained in us, and we need to somehow remain linked to that aspect of humanity. Let me go. So then, literature being a part of humanity, does it matter? If it matters, according to Stanford University, it allows us to think creatively and critically, right? And to ask questions, like Michel Foucault says, question the document, because the question is the forefront of finding the answer and of getting to the truth. Let me jump here ahead. Okay, let me go ahead. All right, let me go right. And then, regarding, of course, what we do in business in a business school, exposure to literature, to the arts, humanities, allows us to develop empathy. When you're able to put yourself in the place of the other person, you are growing. That's great. Plus, also, we develop emotional intelligence, which we need. What else? We develop strong communication skills in English, which we need that. Our life is enriched by simply reading a book about England, Sweden, Norway. Our life is enriched, and we can appreciate the complexity of language. Okay, so then, why theater? What is theater? I feel that the theater is the most democratic form of art there is. Of course, it's the only genre that can unfold into performance. So you can read a text and then also go and watch a performance. I'm hoping, Rosa, that the prices for Hamilton next year are going to be affordable for most of us. I'm hoping. We'll see.
We'll see.
Emmanuel. So then, the importance of theater. This morning, discussing perception and communication, students were saying that indeed, all of us, every day we act, we perform, we change the way we speak, the way we act, depending on with our audience, professors, parents, friends. So then that's why the great bard Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. Only William can say that. Let me, and in fact, why do I say that is the most democratic genre there is? In Shakespeare's time at the Globe Theatre, There was the groundling, that's the cheapest seats on the house, except there were no seats. Standing room only. And people stood in front of the stage and they intervened. They screamed, they approved, they disapproved loudly. So in that sense, the audience, the groundlings, they were part of the play. And so that's why I say it's a more democratic genre. It's the only genre in which the audience can participate with the players on stage. Okay. So then, now, I want to say something about René Marquez because there's a common thread. Obviously, by reading The Heights and Hamilton, I can guess that Emmanuel knows Puerto Rican history, literature, and he has read our literature. And about 2 weeks ago, I gave a talk in a colegio about El Apartamiento by René Marquez. As I went from San Juan to Mayagüez, I read this play for the 8th time. And it occurred to me for the first time the importance of apparently insignificant words. René begins with Obertura and ends with a symphony. And it occurred to me he's speaking about the same as Lin-Manuel, right? The hood is community. So then René is saying, you know what? La obertura is a problem because you may remember, an obertura is simply the introduction to a musical piece unrelated to the content of what follows. That's fragments. We're fragmented. Now, the symphony is a very idea, it's a very fascinating idea for me because Lin-Manuel also works out the idea in The Heights. Symphony is a key element because how many instruments are used in a symphony? 7, 8, 9, 10 different instruments.
15.
However, each one performs its assigned part without ceasing to be, without giving up its identity. That is, the violin participates without relinquishing its identity of violin, and so the piano. So each part, although different, right? Although different, the difference is respected, is recognized, and becomes one in tune, in harmony, which is what René proposes for us, and Lin-Manuel also, as we will see. But say, wow, an antagonism, I realize, what is he trying to say? So that's why, in tune with that, it is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. The common point in René Marquez, whose centenary is coming up next year, and Lin-Manuel Miranda. There are the characters, Usnavi, who is the owner of Las Vegas bodega. Most characters, they have a business, or they dream about having a successful business. And this is a very important point because Lin-Manuel is breaking stereotypes. We are not waiting for handouts. We want to do things on our own. We think we are smart. We think we are resourceful. And we put that into motion, trying to obtain a piece of the American dream. Usnavi, and that is his name, Usnavi, he was named so, which sounds like Usmail of Pedro Juan Soto, because Usnavi's parents, as they went to the United States, they saw a ship that said U.S. Navy, so they named Usnavi according to so. He lived with Abuela Claudia. There was Nina, 19, going to Stanford. Kevin and Camila's daughter. There's Kevin, owner of, notice, small businesses. In a moment, I'll say something about that, because Lin-Manuel, he writes, you will not guess where he writes, in the subway. As he rides the subway, and he says he likes to write there because he's in close contact with people, with gestures, with attitudes, with what they say. I try to imagine myself writing in the subway. I do not picture myself writing, but he's able to do so very successfully. Kevin is the owner of Rosario Car and Limousine, so that's very important because these are entrepreneurs, right? Who want to succeed in spite of circumstances and odds. There's Betty, who, this is not a small detail, who Kevin rescued from the streets and hired him. This is a common element in the play because it shows that we care for who's astray, for who's not living correctly. People care for him. The community takes every child as his own or her own, which it used to be that way when I was raised in Ponce, Residencial Echevarría. The son was everybody's son. Venga muchacho, ya comiste, any house. Unfortunately, that's a relic. And of course, there's Vanessa. She works at Daniela Salon. There's Sony, 15, who wants to have a business, who dreams about having a business in order to give any child in Washington Heights Wi-Fi and a computer. Isn't that interesting? This character wants to succeed in life just to help every child in Washington Heights. And of course, there's the emblematic presence of Abuela Claudia, and there's Daniela, the owner of another small business, in this case, Daniela Salon. So notice how Emmanuel focuses the play on Hispanic entrepreneurs, right, who are battling tremendous odds. There's Carla, and there's Graffiti Pete. This is a character rejected by Kevin and by Usnavi, but at the end, this is the very interesting thing about theater. Apparently, insignificant characters loom large at the end of the play. And of course, there's a Piragua guy. Of course, Piragua, you think about Puerto Rico and the scorching heat, and you want Piragua. Right? So then, even in the winter, he's still an entrepreneur too, right? The Piragua guy also finding his business. So notice how Emmanuel assembles a group of Hispanic entrepreneurs. Why is Washington Heights? It's in Upper Manhattan, and mainly Hispanics inhabit Washington Heights. In fact, Emmanuel, although he has made a lot of money, obviously, he still lives within walking distance of Washington Heights. He has not abandoned the hood, the neighborhood. Right? And then, interesting, about half of the population of Washington Heights is some immigrant stock. They come from elsewhere. However, as presented in the play, rent is a major concern. There's a Bolivian novelist who wrote Bodega Dreams. Is it Quiñones? Bodega Dreams, in which he denounces that in New York, some landlords set buildings afire on purpose so that people have to move and then they can rent the space. They renovate and rent the space to wealthier people. Something like La Ciudadela. And that's called gentrification, moving poor people out of a section in order to rent it to wealthier people. It's a current that has become global. That's called gentrification. So that's why since 2002, and that's a big concern in the play, since the 2002 rent has grown very fast in New York City. Limanuel says that when he was a student, he shared this apartment with the two other students, graduate students, and they paid $1,400. Students in New York. Now it's more expensive. Okay. All right. In fact, the neighborhood, again, I stress, inhabited by mostly Hispanic, has thrived because as of 2013, the neighborhood reached historic levels of population. People are choosing to live there because mainly rent elsewhere is more expensive. Okay, so let me go on to the play. Very interesting in the Washington Heights, more than 1/3 of the residents age 25 or older, they have a bachelor's degree or higher. A very interesting data. So then actually, Emmanuel sets his play by tending to the reality of the neighborhood. And that honesty transpires in every page of the play. So then obviously the rescue their failing business, of course. This is 2006. This is 2 years before the financial meltdown. So credit is hard to get for small entrepreneurs. In the case of Vanessa, she is struggling because her mom is an alcoholic and she drinks the money allotted to rent. This is an element of this play. There's no idealization. Humans are presented as we are, with a sides of light and a sides of darkness. So very interesting how the dialogue presents the conflict. For example, Nina says, oh yes, I have 2 jobs in order to pay for books that I don't have time to read. So then, obviously, there was implied criticism to the system. Had Nina been living in Norway, she would not have that problem, because education is free from the kindergarten to PhD. For the United States, tuition is a problem for those who don't have the means, and the manual shows the problem through Nina's predicament. She is responsible, but she is hampered by the fact that she has 2 jobs, and she says, ironically, to buy books that I don't have time to read. In the meantime, Kevin and Camila are laying off drivers. The economic situation is grim. However, the characters do not fall into despair, and they are strengthened by Abuela's mantra, which is fe en esperanza. That resonates throughout the whole play, and it's his grandmother, right? I think here also in Puerto Rico, grandmother is the source of strength. They have this particular energy, right, which motivates, and so with Abuela, fe en esperanza, and la fe en esperanza eventually pays out in the play. Now, very interesting because I think Manuel read La Hiel Nuestra de Cada Día de Alfred Sánchez, which is about this couple in La Perla, and the man decides to commit suicide in order to go to the other side, find out what is the winning Bonita number, and give it to his wife so that she can survive in Puerto Rico and in La Perla. And in a way, I think, Emmanuel, but in a different tone, picks up on the subject, because they are speculating, the characters. If I win the lottery prize, if I win the $96,000, what would I do? Interesting, all the characters say, yeah, I will keep some for myself, but I will allow so-and-so to help someone, or the neighborhood, or the children, or the students. And that's typically Hispanic. In Puerto Rico, I think no one will go hungry. If your neighbor sees that you need food, I'm sure that it will come up. Now, Abuela Claudia talks to the audience, which is not unusual, right? And then she says to people, so then she won the prize, the prize. Now, as parents do, Kevin wants to sell the business. He knows now that Nina is having financial problems at Stanford, and he wants to help. Because once he heard that Nina had dropped her courses, he said, "Me siento inútil. I feel useless." Right? So then his solution is to sell the business. However, he faces strong opposition from his co-owner, his wife. And they engage into this argument. Half of the business is mine, and you will not sell it. And there is this ongoing argument fueled by circumstances. The actual need, number one, of Kevin, business is failing, and number two, Nina is also failing at the school. So they decide to sell. Now, at the end of the play, there was also a blackout in the play, in the house, in the height. There's one thing that that one can feel throughout the play is that Emmanuel is saying we need to remember that before being men and women, we are humans. And humanity is very important. José Luis González, in his short story, La noche que volvimos a ser gente, there's a blackout. He had the story Blackout in New York, and at the end of that story, the narrator says something about, sí, y fuimos al rufo, y miramos al cielo, y por vez primera vimos las estrellas hermosas. And at that moment we became gente. So the same thing happens in the heights. There's also a blackout, and at the end they also imply we need to keep in contact with nature. We need to respect nature, and the same way in which I look with awe at the drawings from La Mona, the characters in the heights look to the sky without the mediation of electricity and say, wow, certainly the universe is wondrous, and that is our true homes. Although in a physical sense, all of them say, you know what, Washington Heights is our home. We will not leave. We'll remain here and we'll fight it out here at home, Washington Heights. According to Aristotle, literature is more philosophical than history. He says, why? Because number one, history addresses only what has happened. Literature addresses what could happen. In that sense, Lin-Manuel seemed to have foresight regarding the community because actually it has grown stronger, financial situation has improved, people are living better, they have jobs. The downside of that is that actually, like Kevin perhaps, they have reinvented their businesses. And unfortunately, there's been an influx of bars in Washington Heights. And that creates problems, the noise, and, you know, pronto viene por ahí la sunset, you know, the deal, the noise, and, you know. So then, they go out, they know that somebody has won the lotto. They're leaving. Usnavi says, I'm going back to DR, and Vanessa said, I'm going to the Bronx because there I could afford rent. So then it seems like this family is going to disperse. So they go out for a final party at El Carnaval del Barrio, which is very interesting because normally Carnival as a social space allows for questions and allows to question hierarchy and dominant ideas. And in fact, it becomes a space of reflection. So at the end, which one could foresee, at the end, Abuela Claudia died. Right? But she has given Usnavi the money with instructions to distribute and pass to other people. In the meantime, they know that Abuela has died, and Graffiti, as honoring her presence, creates this mural about Abuela. Usnavi sees this work of art, and not only does he decide to stay in Washington Heights, he also gives Pete more money so that he can finish his work. So then, the review about the play. There's harmony. The way in which characters and plays are unfolded is very effective. We can appreciate the complexity of human beings. They're not saints, they're not evil, they're just human beings, right? With the good things and they're less than good things. There is polyphony, meaning by that different voices intermingle and handle and interact, which provides a lively social milieu the play. The music is outstanding, and it was written by Emmanuel. In fact, In the Heights wins the Tony for Best Musical Score. I don't know if this was prearranged, but he read his acceptance speech. He seemed to improvise it in rap. He accepted the Tony, improvising in rap. I don't know if he knew beforehand that he was going to win, but it seems to be spontaneous. And the authors are of the music, Emmanuel, and of the story, Chiara Alegría Ure. Chiara is a very known playwright in her own right. What does Emmanuel show? The power and unity of community. If we contribute what we know, our skills, we can make a better community and surmount any obstacles. Here presents, without being preachy, we know about what's going on in the background, about social, economic, and political conflict, how people react, and that was very effective. Emmanuel presents business as a liberating tool. You are your own boss. You devise where you want to go, how you want to go, what are your goals, and that is empowered. Again, I stress and display, no one is expecting for handouts. Emmanuel breaks stereotypes. Everyone wants to have business, and they want to succeed. Is that utopian? About that, just 1 minute.
Utopian.
So then, what do we have? The assets of the play. Characters who are believable. We believe them because we share some of the problems. We share their way of speaking, of seeing the world, the universe, and the way in which they relate to each other. He dignifies hip-hop and rap on the stage. This is not the Caserío thing. This is Broadway. And it came its own way. It came from off-Broadway first. It was so good that it made it to Broadway. It is very interesting. I just mentioned that he writes in the subway because he's in close contact with the people. He can hear what they're saying, their problems. We know that Puerto Ricans, we are with someone, and I will tell you my whole biography in 2 minutes. So we do that everywhere. Regarding the music, and this is worth reading from Roxanne Hazen. He says, changes in heartbeat from modern to hip-hop to salsa, establishing the persistent and infectious movement of the street. That is his point, to bring the street alive to the stage, and he does so very successfully, I feel. This playfulness extends to language as well, employing bilingualism to great effect. In fact, Spanglish means something else, means using 2 languages in order to communicate with dominant elements. Notice, for example, how identity is very important. Yes, I may be from New York, born in New York, but yet there's something in me. There's a seed in me. And Carla says, for example, I am Chile, Dominican, Curican, but I would say I'm from Queens. Fascinating. What else? In the play, there's a celebration. Right? A celebration of individuals, but in community. Like René Marquez Symphony, I am the violin. Allow me to contribute as a violin without having to change my identity. This is not fair. This is not correct. Right? Characters facing strong economic forces, they are ontology. There's this resiliency in characters. And of course, the Antilles, the Antillas, they perform on stage. Okay, I just mentioned that. Okay. The sense of place, right? Whose part is it? The daughter. At the one given point, notice the stage direction. Partner windows and fire escape tango into the landscape. Where are we? The same as to why admire stars, because it's all part of home. the planet Earth is part of the universe. We're not separated except in our mental construct. And notice the sense of pride. For example, Usnavi. My syntax is highly, I mean, this is music. I can't sing. My syntax is highly complicated because I immigrated from the single greatest place in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic. And of course, problems are so bad that the kids are finding it hard to sleep. Lin-Manuel presents the other side of prejudice, because Benny, who is in love with the daughter, does not know Spanish at all, anything about Hispanic culture. So Kevin says, "You're not one of us. You don't know Spanish. You don't know our history." So then it's the daughter who says, "You know what? That doesn't matter actually, because he said when you came here, you didn't know either." So then, at the end of the play, Kevin and Camila sell the Nina goes back to Stanford, which is an optimistic outlook on the future. Now, this is interesting because the New York Times says that although admiring the lyrics, the story, it says, but it seems like at a given point, it seems to be like a soap opera. At the end, everyone kisses and embraces, like a Shakespeare play, the same thing. But not Shakespeare, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda. So then at the end, which is about ethics and morals, right? But the morals in the universal sense. Carla said, "It feels good, doesn't it? Spreading Jesus' love." It's about ethics, about a way of living. And someone who's not a believer said so before. In a letter that he writes to Einstein, Freud says, "You know what, my dear Albert, the only thing that can save the world is love, the way in which it is shown in the great religious documents of Christianity." And this is no soft opera play with this Freud. Right? In the case of, so then we try to think critically, and to take advantage of opportunities. Like you are taught in this faculty, for example, the Piragua guy, he said, "Oh my goodness, Mr. Softy truck broke down. Now I have the whole market for myself." It's a positive attitude, right? That's us. So then, at the end, Vanessa, through the power of love, she tells Usnavi, "Negro, quédate, yo te amo." What did he do? He said, he stays in Washington. So then, it is very important. Lin-Manuel says, "I illuminate the stories of the people in the streets. Those are the real characters embodied on the stage. For example, imagination. If you close your eyes, that hydrant is a beach, of course, the Caribbean. And then, paciencia y fe, the mantra shows that you are unafraid because you value yourself and you know that you're capable of succeeding. And of course, the underlying idea in the play here, without being syrupy, soap opera, love thy neighbor as yourself. That's so basic, yet so difficult to obtain. And at the end, it's an open ending. You don't know what's going to happen at the end, but that is life. That is actual life. I'm Roberto. I would like to know that I win the lotto tomorrow, but I don't know. What's going to happen tomorrow to me? I don't know. Life is open-ended. I don't know. I wish I knew. And why would I want to win the lotto? I don't have things. I don't need them to buy time and read as many books as I want. Like the character, I can't read the books that I buy. And Lin-Manuel says at the end, okay, and I write this play with that sense of pride, so that everyone at the end, for example, that little white kid is going to know what a Puerto Rican flag is. So then, working as a violin without renouncing identity. I'd like to end with somewhere here. I was here. But anyway, the fact is, in 2016, like Kevin, like Vanessa, in 2016 in Washington Heights, 75% of businesses are small and they employ 5 people or less. So Lin-Manuel has the correct vision. What moves society forward is not IBM, it's because we are more small businesses. In that sense, this play is a fantastic invitation to hope and to maintain esperanza y fe. Thank you very much.
The idea is an introduction so that you want to know more and you will want to read the play. So I hope that you do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question?
Any questions? No, come over here, please. Thank you very much.